No, you're not right-brained or left-brained. That's a myth. And can you actually catch up on sleep? We're going to cover these myths and more while talking about Neurofitness by Dr. Rahul Jandial. Dr. Rahul has operated on thousands of brains and he's a neurosurgeon and he is world renowned for all of the things that he's done and he shares all of the lessons that he's learned about the brain in this book. So I promise you by the end of this training you will know how to build focus, boost memory and unlock creativity and how to upgrade your identity using real brain science. We'll break down the key brain myths called Neuro Busted and the key brain exercises called Neuro Gym and daily habits that can upgrade your neurofitness. No, you're not right-brained or left-brained. That's a myth. And can you actually catch up on sleep? We're going to cover these myths and more while talking about Neurofitness by Dr. Rahul Jandial. Dr. Rahul has operated on thousands of brains and he's a neurosurgeon and he is world renowned for all of the things that he's done and he shares all of the lessons that he's learned about the brain in this book. So I promise you by the end of this training you will know how to build focus, boost memory and unlock creativity and how to upgrade your identity using real brain science. We'll break down the key brain myths called Neuro Busted and the key brain exercises called Neuro Gym and daily habits that can upgrade your neurofitness. So let's dive in. The first thing that we can dive into here is the different regions of the brain and their functions and how they work. Main functions we're going to go over the frontal part of your brain. This is the part of your brain that differentiates you from the beasts. It is your prefrontal cortex. It's how you make decisions and use logic by being able to think and process things. We, as humans, are the only species that are able to project ourselves into the future with goals and different kinds of things like that. So that is what your frontal lobe is for. Your temporal lobe. This lobe is the mysterious lobe of the brain. We don't know exactly all that it's for, but if you were to just go right here by your ear, it's typically responsible for different types of hearing and understanding of language. Then there's the parietal lobe, also on the side, more on the top here. This region of the brain and the temporal lobe contain what's called the Broca's and Wernicke's area that are responsible for language. The parietal lobe also deals with motion and sensations. So you have a lot of sensation that happens on that side of the brain. The occipital lobe is right behind your eyes, all the way in the back of the brain here. That is for your eyes. That's how your eyes are able to process and visualize things. And then there's little parts called the hippocampus, which stores memory, hypothalamus, which regulates a lot of different things. It's the executive center. Then there's the smaller brainstem with the cerebellum and little things like that that control more motor function, balance skills, and overall, the brain is just amazing. We're going to dive into some different things. The overall structure of the brain is axons and dendrites and cells that are able to send what's called neurotransmitters to be able to make it so that you can have thoughts. And what we found is something that he shared in the book is that Albert Einstein's brain had thicker, what's called glia around his myelin sheaths on his dendrites. So what this showed us is that through practice and repetition and training, you can actually grow your highways in your brain, which is super cool and very interesting, okay? So that's kind of like the science part behind it all. Probably should have wrapped up with that, but that understanding of the function of the brain and each of their parts is kind of important. Now to dive into Neuro Busted. These are some myths that we believe in our society, but they simply are not true. There is no such thing as a left brain person and a right brain person. Your brain functions and it works sectionally. It goes across the brain. And so you're not really ever one-sided. One side is more logical, one side is more linguistic, but you've used the whole thing. There's no such thing as the difference between those two. Other myth is that they're like geniuses. Geniuses exist. This is a myth. Talent only grows through practice at an aimed goal or target. Anybody can become a genius with the right level of training and modalities and practice to be able to get genius level at whatever task they're trying to achieve. There's no difference between a genius level's brain and a normal person's brain other than deliberate practice and training. The last myth that I found very interesting was that you can catch up on sleep. I was told through most of school that you can't catch up on sleep, that you're unable to. And that's more chronic sleep, but acute sleep deprivation, so going a couple of days with lack of sleep, or when you're in a season of grinding it out and you're not getting the full 8 hours, or when you have a baby and you're simply not sleeping as much, you can recover and catch back up by having a couple extra hours of sleep on the weekend. And so be sure to utilize sleep and try and get an average of 8 hours a night. Less sleep is really bad, but they also saw that even more sleep, so 9 plus, 10 plus hours, is actually also detrimental and causes more heart disease. So try and be right in the sweet spot for your sleep. Neuro Gym. This is where we talk about the fitness side of everything. One thing that I want to share, he didn't share this in the book, but this is one of the things that we talked about in my classes concerning ventricles, which is a portion of your brain that's responsible for balance and motor skills. Is you want to do crisscross taps. You want to lift your right hand while lifting your left foot and then tapping, and then left hand, right foot, and then be able to do them alternatively. And if you have a hard time doing it at the same time, you can train that, and it actually helps prevent dementia and helps you increase your balance. So literally the simple just crisscross tap your hand, opposite foot, and keep doing that. And one thing that I absolutely love that he actually talked about and broke down scientifically is the power of mindful breathing. Mindful breathing enhances your cognitive abilities, your hippocampus, and your emotional regulation. So, what does that mean? You'll be able to have better memory through literally just deliberate practice. And the best one that he said to do is box breathing. Breathe in for 4 seconds, hold at the top, breathe out for 4 seconds, and then hold at the bottom for 4 seconds. So 4 seconds in, 4 seconds, and you do a little box like that. And just doing that for 5 to 10 minutes a day will increase your ability to focus, increase your memory, and literally make you smarter. The other thing that I really liked that he talked about applicationally was cognitive behavioral therapy. This is where we take the brain and we actually apply it in therapy sessions to be able to transition your behaviors. If you have something like addiction or a behavior that you don't want to have, like lack of sleep, then you can use cognitive behavioral therapy to be able to overcome that. There's different steps. I would suggest looking it up, but there's like journaling, identity shifting, and emotional regulation that we can also talk about as well, because it's very personal and it depends on what patterns you want to rewire. And the last section of Neuro Gym that I thought was interesting was the power of learning a second language. And then obviously beyond that, you can learn 3 or 4 or more languages. But by just knowing a second language, you're protecting your brain and preventing Alzheimer's and dementia and neurodegenerative diseases by 4 or more years. So your brain stays healthier longer and you have more cognitive processes that are able to help your brain stay healthy. So learn another language. Learn something else. Go and learn Spanish or Mandarin or French or whatever language you want to learn. Go and learn it. I am fortunate to have learned Spanish, and so I'm able to have Spanish as kind of a backup language in my head. Okay, section 4, we're going to talk about some brain hacks and habits that you can start to apply. I'm just going to rapid fire through these and you can just list them off. I'm not going to explain them really deeply because they're pretty simple. The first one is that when your personality fails, biology scales. If you have a hard time doing something individually, the best way that you can help yourself is by unlocking and utilizing your biology, what a lot of people call biohacking these days, but it's not quite that deep. Let's keep it simple. Number 2 is nature exposure. Famous psychologist Carl Jung would do nature retreats and just have deep thought. But you don't have to go on a full nature retreat in a cabin. You can literally just walk outside, and this will boost your creativity and enhance your focus. The next thing is going to be extra recess time for kids and adults, finding time to be creative and have free flowing thought. Neurofood was another principle, and he talks about diets that you can eat to be able to reduce brain fog and support neural growth. And it's called the mind diet. And it's a Mediterranean, and then you try and just eat whole, healthy foods without all that processed junk. And you implement regular fasting, 24-hour periods, 16-hour periods, even 72-hour fasts are beneficial for brain health. Managing head injuries is actually really easy. You don't want to just rest and completely incubate. You want to stay as active as possible and be deliberate with your rest periods. The other thing is to have a calm and clean environment around you. Make sure you have reduced clutter. It's going to help your brain think better, and your environment literally affects your ability to focus. So I want to share and finish off with two stories that were very interesting from this book. There was a young girl that had to have a hemispherectomy because she was having seizures due to her two hemispheres having miscommunication. So a hemispherectomy is literally cutting the brain in half and removing half of the brain. They did this to this little girl. They took out half of her brain, and they took out the right side of her brain. The whole left side of her body was completely paralyzed. Couldn't move her arm, couldn't move her legs. But after 3 years, the parents sent a video of this little girl playing soccer to the surgeon, to Dr. Rahul, and she was fully functional. She had a little bit of a droop on her left side, but both sides worked. This was a powerful example of neuroplasticity, that the brain will adapt and change according to the environment that's given. There were also cases where people were shot in the head. They had portions of the brain removed, and they were able to their brains literally adapted and transitioned where the different functions are in the brain. And that's where my second story is about a blind woman. So the occipital lobe, okay, is directly correlated, well, directly tied to your eyesight, your vision. This blind woman, she has no sight, right? She lost function of her occipital lobe, and then suddenly she was unable to read Braille. She lost it. That's your sense of touch. So she couldn't read Braille, but she could still differentiate between pennies and dimes. She could still feel her keys. She still had the sense of touch, but she couldn't read anymore because her brain adapted and changed and made it so that reading was still located in the occipital lobe. That is so interesting that the brain literally adapted so much for this woman's physiological ailment that it adapted and used that region of the brain still for visual cues like reading. So there you go. That's kind of me being able to nerd out on some neurofitness tactics and talk more about the brain. I love talking about this kind of stuff. Neurofitness isn't just like a futuristic thing. You think neuro is just brain, it's very simple. All these neuro gym things that we talked about are everyday practices, from your diet to identity to your environment to the little hacks to be able to increase your focus and your performance to elite levels. So, if you're ready to build your own mental mastery and talk more about these topics personally for you, then join the MindFit Sales School community. It's completely free. I'd love to see you on the inside. We can talk deeper about this at a personal level on how we can boost your sales, increase your performance, and shift your identity to live a happier, healthier life. So go ahead and check that out. Thank you so much for tuning in. Till next time, stay MindFit.